So in today's video, we're going to talk about top 5 JavaScript mistakes that you have made at least once in your lifetime. So the first one on the list is null checking in JavaScript. In JavaScript, null checking of a variable is a little bit different. So it is not just a simply you can check if the variable, suppose you have a variable called myvar, okay, and you want to check the value. You want to check if the variable is empty or not. So it is not like you can check with equal to operator and you want to check null or not. This is not enough because in JavaScript the variable can be undefined as well. So you have to check undefined or not. I am gonna use triple equal to here. Okay. So as you can see that we have defined the variable. That means yeah, the variable is defined. But what is the value of that? So it will be initially undefined. So this undefined will satisfy. And one more thing can happen, that it can be null. So what happens, sometimes you can just set null, right? So in that case, the value will be null, so you can check the null also, right? One more condition can happen, that is, suppose you don't know the variable is defined or not. Suppose this line is not there, so you're not sure that variable is defined or not. So in this case, if you just check myvar equals to undefined or not, it's going to throw error because the variable is not defined. So in that case, what you should do is you can check with type of operator. You can check type of myvar equal to undefined or not. Just note that I'm using string undefined because this is the return value of type of, and the return value of type of is a string. So in that case you need to check like this. uh, so the rule of thumb is, if you know that the variable is defined, then you just check variable equals to undefined or variable equals to null. And if you don't know if the variable is defined or not, then you have to use type of. And also you need to check if it's null or not. The next on the list is forgetting to bind context. In this example, I have a class. In that class I have two methods. One is do something else, another is my method. In the my method, I'm calling another function and I'm passing a new function. Inside that, I'm calling the private method do something else with this keyword. Now the problem is that uh, we don't know that this will point to the object of that class or not, because in JavaScript we're not sure that how the function will be called. This function we're passing, right? So we don't know how this function will be called and what context will be passed, because the reference, the value of this is determined in a runtime. So to solve this issue, what we can do is we can bind the context. So we can use this bind function that you can call in any function. And what happens is, if you bind the context, it returns a new function, and in that function the context is bound. That means we are passing this, right? So this context will be bound to this function, so we don't have to worry about which context it is being called. This will always point to the object of that class. One more thing you can do, that is, you can use arrow function. You can just use arrow function and that will just work fine. You don't need to bind anything. Arrow function automatically binds this, and that is one huge advantage of using arrow function. Next on the list is thinking variable scopes are block level scope. So in JavaScript, variable scopes are not block level. These are lexical scope. What I mean by that is, suppose I have a function in JavaScript. Inside that function, I'm creating a variable. As you can see that this is a function. Inside that I'm creating a variable, and these are called lexical scope. So only function can create a new scope here. But these are blocks. Suppose if block or else block, like for loop, while loop, those are all blocks. And suppose I have it if block here. If I try to create a new variable here, so this variable myvar outside and inside is myvar inside the if block, they are all same, because if block cannot create a new scope, only function can create a scope. And this is often mistaken. To avoid that, in ES6 uh, we have let keyword. Later actually block level scope. So if I type something like this, let a equals to 5, this let is block level. So inside if also I can create a new let, a equals to 6. So here the a outside and a inside are different. Another common mistake in JavaScript is automatic type conversion. So in JavaScript, as you know, that it is dynamic typed language. That means type can change at any point of time. Suppose I have one variable and then I'm assigning some number in it. In next line, I can just assign a string. So the value, the type of the variable can change. And sometimes the problem is JavaScript automatically changes the type and you're not sure that how the variables type have been changed. Let me give you another example. uh, I have it number 1 and then I'm adding another string with that number. So what will be the output? It will be string 1 2. What has happened here? So JavaScript have converted 1 into string, and then and the string got concatenated and the result became 12. So this is very confusing for new developers because they're not sure how the conversion happened, and it is also very difficult to debug. So you should always avoid this kind of uh, calculation. Another most common mistake in JavaScript is treating callbacks synchronously. So here we have two examples. One is the for each function of array and set timeout function. Both for each and set timeout accepts one callback, but callback is called differently in for each and set timeout. For each, callback is called synchronously. That means when this for each is being executed, that time only it calls the function, the callback function. But in case of set timeout, the function, the callback function is executed after the set timeout is executed. So often when you are calling any unknown function and you are passing one callback, then normally you don't know how this callback function is going to be called. So in such scenarios, we should often consider that the function is going to be executed asynchronously. So that's it for today. If you have any comment or suggestion, please let me know in the comment section below.